folks? It's Jim Hansen, and I am your East Coast warlord.
And I'm Kurt Schlichter, your West Coast warlord. Happy Independence Day. It's America's...
Ho, ho. No?
What the fuck?
Dude, I do that every holiday, and I can't believe it threw you that good. That stays in.
Okay, it stays in.
Ho, ho, ho.
Again, happy Independence Day. Do something weird. Wow, I'm thrown for a loop. What is it, 247? Yeah, it's 247.
2026 is the sesquicentennial.
Yeah, it's getting a little older. It's kind of hitting the wall, as they say in chick terms.
It's kind of hitting the wall, as they say, in how long does a republic last terms, too.
Well, you know, I've been sketching out my "Is America Rome" book idea, so I'm kind of hot to trot on this right now. Let's draw our gladiuses and wade into the barbarians, if you will. Why do these people hate Independence Day, Warlord Jim?
The whole when in the course of human events and can we get along and why can't we get along thing, the left has decided they don't want to. You know, they literally at this point are simply looking for ways to eliminate us. You know, whether it's through censorship, whether it's through legal terms or whatever. So I don't know that they actually want to be part of our republic anymore.
Well, I know they don't want us to be part of a republic, right. And they don't want to be a republic at all. They're about delegitimizing and disenfranchising and, you know, in some cases, eliminating us. We are the problem. Now, that's a very leftist kind of thing, Warlord Jim, because we see a lot of leftists out there who, faced with the problems of people who won't submit, want to get rid of them, and sometimes not in a very nice way.
Yeah, I mean, in the course of their socializing us, they're doing all the things tyrants and dictators and totalitarians have done throughout time. They're trying to take our guns away. They're trying to take away our speech so we can't convince people that they're wrong. And all of these things combined make me wonder, what is the future of the United States? Or is our buddy Dave Reboy right? Do we need a national divorce?
Well, there's a lot of people writing about that. I actually may have written a book or two with that as a theme, but you know, I'm not for it.
Right.
The fact that I'm describing what I think could happen if we're foolish and ignore the fact that we've been somehow gifted the most incredible document for governing human affairs in human history. Maybe we should do that. But
you know, and
people are
you're
stupid.
Writing cautionary tales.
I am writing cautionary. I'm saying, hey, you know, and if you read my books, the People's Republic series, you know, they start out with, you know, Blue America. A lot of them take place in Red America too. It's not paradise, because I'm not fooling myself. Well, I mean, we have Jim Hansen's Man Meat on billboards.
The greatest billboard in fictional book history.
Greatest billboard. Eat Jim Hansen's Man Meat. But no, I just don't think people appreciate what we have here sufficiently. They lack the experience and imagination to understand that there's other stuff out there, as you've experienced overseas.
You know, we both were involved in the Cold War.
Yeah.
And I think now we've got a couple generations that were educated in a way that did not involve explaining to them the precious gift they were given when, you know, those brave souls signed the Declaration of Independence, declared war on the greatest military power on earth up to that point, and won our independence and freedom. And now, having ignored that, they ignore the other cautionary tales that really happened of the Soviet Union, you know, of the Axis powers and other things that have tried to create a totalitarian paradise like the left wants.
You know, what's interesting about history, Warlord Jim, is that the left rejects it utterly. They think history started in 1619 and skipped ahead till when Obama became president. But
slavery all the way between.
There was a lot of slavery in between. You know, I mean, imagine being such a child as to think that America somehow pioneered and was unique in slavery. It was unique in that it was the only nation that fought a bloody civil war to eliminate it.
Right. But every nation, everywhere around the world has had slavery in some way, shape, or form.
Yes.
We had a much shorter period of it than most of them, including Africa, which to this day still has slaving going on. Some of the Arab states still have slaving going on. Those things, but let's not talk about that. Let's not talk about making movies these days where you fictionalize a slave trading woman king and take the slave trading out.
Yes. Huh. Yes, she was a slaver. She enslaved people. Oh, now we're supposed to call them not slaves, but enslaved persons because reasons. And shut up, I'll do what I want.
Exactly.
You know that it's not an honest discussion of history, but rather an attempt to grab some sort of moral high ground.
Mm-hmm.
An unearned moral high ground when they ignore the reality of history. You can find slavery repellent, and you can be proud of the American warriors who went and fought to free the slaves, while also acknowledging that slavery is bad. In fact, that kind of underlines the entire point. But it's not logical. It's not rational. It's not about facts. It's about trying to get some sort of moral high ground over us, and they don't deserve it. They're not getting it from me.
And the thing is, their replacement for, as you mentioned, the greatest document of human governance in history is to move towards social democracy, socialism, and then some flavor of totalitarianism. And I'm working on a project now to see, what parts of the founding were flawed and how, if we went back to do it again, would we do different? And you only have to change, in essence, two things. Slavery was the worst idea and a stain that cannot be erased, period. So that has to go. And women's suffrage, Jesse Kelly notwithstanding, you have to let women vote and give them full franchise.
Do we have to let my liberal wine women neighbors vote? Because frankly, they're responsible for a lot of the terrible things that are going on here.
I know they are, but unfortunately, they're as bad as they are. The awfuls, as Jack Posobiec calls them now. He's got a great acronym for that I'll put up on the screen.
And they are awful.
They are awful, but we have to let everyone vote. And then we have to let everyone speak still.
Yes.
And that's the difference. They're trying to shut that down because their ideas don't work if free speech is in play, because they're awful and they're obviously a failure everywhere they've been implemented.
Well, they consider opposition an obstacle.
Right.
They've already decided what's right. They don't need a debate. Shut up, you racist bad person of evil. By the way, there is one other thing the founders should have done. At the end of the Second Amendment, they should have included the words "no kidding."
Right.
No, we're serious.
It would have been simple. The people get the same guns the military does. What are your questions?
Yeah. Exactly. Now, we've been talking a little about history here, and I think history is important. One of the problems is, of course, history is not taught in schools. In my own nonfiction, the history parts are always the most popular.
Right.
Americans love history, particularly conservative ones. I think it's interesting that the left really wants to stomp it out.
Or just revise it. There's, like you said, you started with the 1619 Project, one of the greatest works of political fiction of, this millennium. And what they did was simply create the mythos that they wanted to support the narrative that America was built and has been a white supremacist country since its founding and continues to be that to this day. And it's simply not true. And they've done that with any other part of history that they find inconvenient. And I don't think we should let them. So I think we should take advantage of our side's hunger for that and the fact that we now have a good fight going about who's going to educate the kids. And wouldn't it be weird if our kids actually knew the founding and what it was all about?
I think it would be wonderfully weird instead of all this trans pervert weird stuff. But this kind of brings us to the SCOTUS decisions, and there were a lot of them. And one of them that drew a lot of attention was Ketanji Brown Jackson's terrible dissent. I mean, it's just stupid.
It's like she's not a native English speaker.
Well, if you're making writing a legal opinion about the Constitution, Maybe you should mention the Constitution, because the parts that are always meant are these allegedly heartfelt cries about how racial prejudice is bad. Well, yeah, it is bad. That's why we're against it. And I'm looking through this stuff. Well, the court forgets the lived experiences of Americans. I don't know. I guess I went to a traditional law school because I didn't have I never cited to lived experience. Okay. If I was talking about the Constitution, I looked at the Constitution and said, here's the amendment, here's the paragraph, here's the article, whatever. This is where it is. This is what it says. If you do it her way, Jim, what you have is not Constitution, but a political Mad Libs that you just fill in with what you want, making it nothing. And then I suppose she'll be surprised when we do the same.
Here's the nice thing, though. We don't actually have to.
No.
You know, the best part about it, and I think it was very heartening to me, and let's talk first about the affirmative action decimation. Chief Justice Roberts actually stood firm beside his belief that the best way to end racial discrimination was to end racial discrimination. And I think he also, and I think this is a key part of it, this was in relations to college admissions. And he said,
yes,
that, okay, we gave the colleges a little bit of leeway because they said they want to include this as one of the things they're looking at, but we caught them cheating. They were just cheating to do quotas.
Yes.
Then he did something even more important. He showed that the goal of diversity, the very goal of saying diversity based only on skin color, is not a reason to conduct racial discrimination to fix it. That kills equity. And that's something the whole DEI industry now is on notice, that you can no longer discriminate just because the numbers don't match up. That's huge.
Oh yeah, the sand in the hourglass is draining on the era of DEI, and thank God.
Yeah.
What a disaster. But this is a problem for the left. Is the left creates these racial coalitions, and it wants to include the Muslims, and it wants to include the Asians, and it wants to include the Latinos. And now we're seeing, not just here, but in a number of places, this is all breaking down. Asian Americans are like, wait a minute, I don't understand why my kid needs to suffer so that someone of another racial group get some sort of unearned advantage. And then you got Muslims now famously saying, wait a minute, we didn't sign up for this trans crap in schools.
And the law of unintended consequences.
Yeah, and you have the Hispanic Americans who are looking at going, hey, I don't like this trans crap. Also, I'd like a good economy, please. Because I'm not asking for a handout. I want to work. And I think a lot of Black Americans are going, I don't particularly like the idea that anytime I achieve someone, you're going to have someone asking a question that the Democrats find legitimate, which is, did affirmative action help you? Because apparently affirmative action helping you is a good thing. So you should ask about it because it's a good thing that happened. But, people who work hard and earn it on effort and not because their grandfather came from, whatever continent, they're like, wait a minute, this is crap. So, I think it's a real problem for them.
My favorite part was Michelle Obama complaining that she had people thinking she maybe benefited from affirmative action instead of maybe being the super brightest person. Now, I don't know if you've done it, but I read her master's thesis. And oh my God, is she an idiot? At best, it was, like you said, a Mad Lib of, at that point, pre-woke, progressive, liberal, leftist, quasi-racist garbage. But it wasn't even internally coherent. It wasn't even a good job of a bad idea. And she's complaining she doesn't want people to think she got an unearned reward, when I think it's safe to say she almost certainly did.
The thing is, they want to move beyond argument, because the argument is, okay, Michelle, did you benefit from affirmative action or not?
Yeah, and they gotta straddle that line that says, okay, it's good. That wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was somebody else who was lesser qualified.
Yeah,
who
I'm
got
great.
elevated.
I'm
right?
amazing.
And that's the problem. How do the black people who are actually qualified feel? And in her case, I think she unjustifiably felt she was qualified for what she got out of life. Obviously not. But there are plenty of people who got elevated, and got an unearned reward. And then the rest of them looking at those people saying, well, now look at that. Now I look like I got, a free ride when I earned my keep. And the worst thing too, you mentioned the Asians, they got kicked out of the People of Color Coalition for overachievement and making everybody else look
Although
bad.
the Dems still want their votes, because Asian Americans at least used to vote very, very Democratic. We'll see how that holds up. Interesting statistic that I heard today. Of the black admittees to Harvard, only 2/3 were related to someone who had been a slave. 2/3 were not. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah,
I mean, doesn't that kind of upend the whole? But that doesn't matter because it's not logical. I go back to Justice Jackson's argument. Her argument's not a legal argument. Her argument's an emotional plea. Mm-hmm. And this goes back to the Declaration of Independence, because at some point when we didn't have a voice as Americans at all, we couldn't argue, our arguments weren't heard, we weren't part of the process. When you take away the ability to argue and convince, whether it's by censorship or by simply refusing to honor the idea of argument, what's left for getting your way?
Power.
Yeah.
Raw, naked power.
And where's power come from?
The barrel of a gun.
Thank you, Chairman Warlord Mao. No, I mean, really, the idea behind this is very, very dangerous. That is, we're going to eliminate your ability to participate in society, to speak, to avail yourself of the courts. We're going to persecute you on the basis of race, and you're just going to sit and take it. Okay, throughout history, which again, guys like you and I and most of our listeners study, when did people take it forever?
Yeah, no. You're eventually going to go too far. Everybody's got red lines. And I think the one we're approaching rapidly now is the idea on the left that the Supreme Court, because they followed the Constitution in these rulings that they dislike, starting with abortion, you go through affirmative action, you go through you can't make me bake a cake, all of that stuff. They decided, okay, we're going to actually follow the Constitution, not the emotions. Now the court has proved itself illegitimate, and so they're trying at this point to lay the groundwork for what they've always wanted. Let's pack the court if we win in 2024. And I think they're going to do it if they win, at least a 1-seat majority in each house and the executive. And that's a scary thought, because if they do that, then we're in the position where they'll go for the Second Amendment first, because you got to disarm us, and the First and the rest of them as soon as they've got the guns.
What happens if these guys essentially drum us out of being citizens to make a search? What happens? And it is not, the thing is, there are, state structures that exist that would resist. It's not just a bunch of guys with their tactical gear. It's actual states going, no, down the road. And I can see that happening. I don't want it to happen. It's a bad idea. But
it's funny. The very idea of the warlords came out of a joke that you and I used to do in one of our chat back channels, where I would say, if the flag goes up, I'll be the East Coast warlord and you be the West Coast warlord. Never expecting to have to honestly consider the possibility that could happen. Doing everything we can to make sure it doesn't by, getting a counterattack started in the figurative sense against wokeness, against the dangers to the republic, which I think is underway and which I think is actually going well. So, I think we have done some tremendous good over the past 5+ years to avoid that possibility. But I wrote my book, Winning the Second Civil War Without Firing a Shot, to avoid that possibility, not to preclude it completely. Because if you take away the Supreme Court's check on leftist will to power, we got a problem.
And they've got some tactical problems too. Did you catch a look at the U.S. Army actually put out a tweet of a man pretending to be a woman, a major, of course, it's a field grade.
Always a major.
It's
like clearly, the spec 4 of the officer ranks. You know, the major is the spec 4 of the officer ranks.
All I could say is maybe he wanted to be a woman because then maybe he met height, weight. But
no.
Who's the guy who's going to go, I want to be part of an organization that takes this ridiculous clown seriously? And the answer is not, traditional, macho male guys who hearken to the combat arms like you and I did. It's losers want to be part of that organization.
And I'll be honest, at some level, I am against trans people serving and having surgery and being severely medicated in the military.
I am too. No, you wear the uniform of your actual gender. We're not going to play this operation thing. You just don't get to do it.
You know what's funny? I saw a great tweet from the redheaded libertarian where she said, "There's this major who is suicidal and depressed most of his life." Somehow finds happiness and the military gives him all the guns he wants, while the same people who cheer that try to take guns away from depressed suicidal males in the civilian populace. How does that make any sense?
It doesn't make any sense, except if you understand that they're doing this to show you that you are a second-class citizen, that you've got to take whatever they give you, and that you have, even especially if it's ridiculous.
Right.
That's why they hated 303 Creative. They could not humiliate evangelical Christians by making them essentially genuflect to the ruling class's mores. It drives them crazy.
Yeah, I mean, they've conducted a war on normal to say everything, no matter how weird, bizarre, or whatever, is not judgeable as better or worse or even abnormal.
No, it's judged as better. It's better.
And then they can take apart the rest of society, which is why they have to shut us up. Because once we can talk about it and normal people see it, everyone, you get a good, solid majority of the people going, no. Well, that's why we didn't sign up for that.
That's why they're so freaked out at the Muslims in these schools going, we're not here for this. This ain't our thing. Okay,
and we have a book, and we believe
we got a book, and this ain't in it.
Yeah, right.
Of course, they're not talking about that. They're just saying, look, you're not going to tell my, son that he can be a chick. You're not getting to do that. And I don't care how much Trader Joe's Chardonnay you've swilled, wine woman.
If they get the power, they're going to finish that fundamental transformation they've been working on, and they're going to take whiteout and an eraser and a paintbrush to the Constitution and wipe out huge swaths of the rights of us to go ahead and live the way we want, which is why this country was founded. We left Britain so we could have that.
And the problem is when you leave people backed against the wall with no hope, Lexington and Concord, baby. And these people are dumb enough and historically illiterate enough to risk something like that because they don't have the imagination to understand how this stuff goes.
And they love poo-pooing it. They love saying, oh, there's no way, Biden. Oh, if you don't have a nuclear weapon, you can't take it on. And first of all, I want to say again, like I do every time, the last thing on earth I want is any kind of civil conflict in the United States of America.
The worst thing possible. And we're nowhere near it now. We're talking about trends down the road, but right now we can still affect outcomes of elections. We still have a court system that sort of works. We still have the protection of some laws. We still have the ability to speak for the most part.
That's why it's so vital that everybody get their shit together and become part of the process. If you're on our side,
you better get in there.
Don't think there's some magical, we'll have some great, book series where everything good happens. Kurt gets to make that up. All right, it's going to be much worse.
And it ain't all good.
It ain't all good. Tons of people on our side would die. Tons of people on their side would die.
I prefer nobody die.
Horrible.
I prefer we live by
Bingo.
our Constitution as it's written, not as it's imagined or hallucinated. But
And that was the joy of this round of Supreme Court decisions.
Yes.
They went back and they cited. Here's what the Constitution says. Here's what the judicial history of this has been through all of it. And here's why you can't do that. You can't discriminate based on race to fix racial discrimination if for an extended period of time, with no end in sight. You can't do that. We gave you a very small window and you abused that. So stop. And the other thing I like that Roberts did is he added a little thing that said there's a thing that says, whether we directly or indirectly are doing this.
oh yes.
And that was a reminder. We know you're going to try and game the system.
And they're already
and we'll
looking at, just like they do with guns. Look, it's the Democrat massive resistance thing happened after Brown v. Board.
Yep.
We spent 20 years having to essentially force Democrats to desegregate.
Yeah. Now they're going to fight for their right to discriminate. And
Yes.
we've already seen it. Biden did tip the hat. The game they're going to use, well, not Biden, but the political people who are operating Biden like a marionette. He said adversity is now the thing. We're going to stop diversity because they figured out that we figured it out. Diversity to get equity is, racial discrimination to achieve socialist equal outcomes. Okay, well, we caught you.
They're going to do anything they can to create their little racial quotas. And I think it was a very effective warning that it's not going to work. We know what you're going to do, and we're not going to let you do it. But anyway, hey, look, we're doing a little shorter warlords this time, celebrating our great Independence Day.
Hey, did you notice? You probably can't see it, but I have a bouquet of giant bottle rockets on the back there
see.
behind
I've
me.
got nothing because I live in a sissy state. We're not even allowed to have fireworks over the ocean anymore. They banned those. I hate this place.
I think these are actually illegal from here, but I don't care.
Well, fight the power, baby.
There
Fight
you
the
go,
power.
man.
You're a warlord. I'm Kurt
good
Schlichter.
outlaw.
I'm the West Coast warlord.
And I'm Jim Hansen, the East Coast warlord. Happy Independence Day.
Happy 4th. Bye-bye.